medical assistance in dying has become such a normal part of the Canadian healthcare system that as well as there being a 24-hour suicide prevention hotline, there's now a 24-hour MAID hotline too.
Thank you for calling. The Ontario Medical Assistance in Dying Care Coordination Service is designed to provide information about end-of-life options in Ontario, and as well referrals for medical assistance in dying. If you would like to speak with an advisor to access the service or get more information, please press 1.
But stories have started to emerge suggesting MAID is being chosen for reasons that have nothing to do with health.
Hello.
Hello, Amir. Hi, I'm Liz.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Amir Farsood is a disabled man who was struggling to survive on state benefits.
For the last almost 8 years, I've had the misfortune of being on Ontario Disability Support Program, which gives a maximum of just over $1,300 to a single adult.
Weekly, monthly?
Monthly.
Okay.
Just as a frame of reference, the average one-bedroom apartment in this province costs almost twice what a person on ODSP makes. This all started when the place where I was living in was put up for sale. I would no longer be able to live there. Literally after like 4 months of looking, there was no place. There did not exist a place that I could afford to live in. At which point, I decided, okay, I'm not going to be homeless.
You've been homeless before?
I've been homeless before. The winters here are harsh. 6-7 months of the year having sub-zero temperatures 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's people that try to keep warm with makeshift fires and end up burning to death. There's people that freeze to death. The one thing I knew was that no matter what, homelessness was off the table. The options were miraculously find a spot, kill myself, or get MAID. And there was no fourth option. But I did tell my doctor right off the bat that while I qualify for medical reasons, the reason I'm asking you is my socioeconomic position at the moment.
The doctor nonetheless approved Amir under Track 2 of MAID, based on unbearable suffering. This means that after a 90-day assessment and waiting period, the applicant, Amir in this case, can be euthanized. By contrast, waiting lists for social housing in Ontario can be over a decade.
And was basically just, waiting for the 90 days to be up.
I was going to say, did you have a date?
Yes, I did. I was marking time.
Yeah.
I was the condemned guy who's waiting for, his hour. I got a call from a reporter in Toronto who said, would you mind if I came up and interviewed you?
Imagine choosing death over homelessness. That's what one St. Catharines man is contemplating.
Are you afraid to die?
Who isn't? Yeah,
Amir Farsood has applied for medically assisted dying, known as MAID. He lives in constant agony due to a back injury.
A woman in Toronto saw the story, started this fundraising thing online for me. And in 4 days, it raised $60,000 and allowed me to pay off my debts, and I can actually afford rent. If not for her, I would have died at the end of November last year.
You would not be here, but for socioeconomic reasons. That's just...
Yeah.
Are you going to celebrate this year?
My death anniversary?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about having a few friends over and raising a glass and saying, it's been a year since my death and I'm still here.
You could say something like, I made it.
Yes. Hey, that's good. I'm going to use that.
Have that for free.
All right, cool. I'm going to order a cake with the writing on it.
And a syringe.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
God, you're good.
Thanks. Amir could have been euthanized because he's disabled and poor. Not everyone can use maid because they're suffering from poverty and other social ills. No, that's a privilege reserved only for those who are ill and disabled. In the future, maid will be available for people with mental health conditions. And as if it couldn't get any worse, a parliamentary committee recommends extending the law to mature minors. That could mean children as young as 12, the age I was when I first said that I wanted to die. Feeling like slightly like a children's TV presenter and wearing pink, all very cozy. The Medical Assistance in Dying activity book. This is for children who have a relative who is thinking about or who's going to use medical assistance in dying, euthanasia. You know, it takes you through the process. The first medicine makes the person feel very relaxed and fall asleep. They may yawn or snore or mumble. The second causes a coma. A coma looks like sleep, but is much deeper than regular sleep. I'm not sure if that's consoling to a child or useful. I don't know. I don't know. Here's a list of some feelings. Perhaps I was most concerned about the one that says excited. These sort of things just, they give me like a shiver and a fear and an absolute please don't allow this in the UK. Canada is not the only country I'm crossing off my travel itinerary. Other countries where some form of assisted suicide and or euthanasia are legal include Belgium, Netherlands, New Zealand, most of Australia, 11 American states, Spain, Portugal, Switzerland, Austria, Colombia and Canada. But see, overall, it's still only available to a small percentage of the global population. However, in many of these countries, the law applies to disabled people. Great. It's not just me and a few friends who are worried about what would happen if we open the door to assisted suicide here in the UK. Professor Catherine Sleeman is an expert in palliative and end-of-life care at King's College London.
There are some specialties where doctors are, on the whole, supportive towards assisted dying. And there are other specialties where doctors are, on the whole, very much against. And palliative care is right at one end of that spectrum, followed by geriatrics. It's perhaps not surprising that the two types of specialists who are most opposed to assisted dying are those who spend their days working with the most vulnerable people in society.
In your practice as a doctor, do people often ask and want to end their lives at that point?
I have had occasional patients who've said to me, this is intolerable, can't we do something to end things sooner?
Yeah.
And every time that's happened in the past, we have managed to make a plan to address some of those intolerable symptoms to make them tolerable again. I'm not going to claim that palliative care can always end all suffering, but what I would say is that perhaps a more important focus is the fact that too many people actually miss out on any palliative care at all.
Yeah. But if there are limits to palliative care, is there then a place for what's called assisted dying?
All arguments for assisted dying really based on autonomy. It's my right, my choice, my decision. Yeah. And I listen to the stories of the people who have decided that that is what they want, and they're very, very compelling and moving to listen to. But there's a difference between, is assisted dying morally okay? Is it the right thing for that individual? And should we legalise this? Is it the right thing for our society?
What has led you to that understanding, I guess?
So I think the big concern for me is safety. It's ensuring that those who are perhaps more vulnerable in our society to being coerced into an assisted death are protected from that. And I suppose my background in palliative medicine exposes me to people who I think are vulnerable to that. Coercion does happen, definitely. A classic example would be talking with someone about going to a care home. Patients will say to me, well, I don't want to go to a care home, really, but I know my family want me to do it, and I know it will be easier for them, so I think I'm going to say yes. Now, that example doesn't intrinsically worry us, but substitute the words go to a care home with have an assisted death, and I think it's a completely different picture. So it's about coercion. It's about vulnerable people being pressurised into having assisted deaths, primarily. That's the greatest harm, the most catastrophic risk, I would say, of changing the law.
What makes you think it could create more harm?
No assisted dying law can be 100% safe. That means that there will be people who slip through the net. The question, therefore, is, well, how safe is safe enough? What margin of error would we, as a society, find acceptable? So, to put some numbers to it, would we accept the death of one person who didn't want to die in order to allow the assisted death of one who did? Or maybe that ratio is 1 to 10, or maybe it's 1 to 100. Those are the questions we need to be really grappling with as a society, because there's a lot of talk about safeguards, and the implicit implication is that safeguards will make this law 100% safe. But they won't. They can't. So the question we should be asking is, OK, how safe is safe enough for us?
Of course, not all disabled people agree with me on this subject. Melanie Reid is a journalist who often uses her column in The Times to push for a change in the law.
Hello, Liz.
Thanks for this.
Come on in. I'm so sorry about the weather. Come on in.
Melanie became disabled after a horse riding accident over a decade ago.
Before my accident happened, I was arrogant about my health, and I had this assumption that I would cruise into old age. My parents both lived till they were 88, and it was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have, you know, long working life and be fit and healthy, and everything's going to be fine. And so when my accident happened, it was a crashing fall, psychologically as well as physically. I was plummeted overnight. From I was 52, I was fit and healthy, and I was sort of catapulted into extreme disability.
I get that. You've just joined the most unfun, unsexy, tragic gang in the world. And no wonder people want to die at that point.
I can see that if you feel you are intrinsically vulnerable, that you belong to a minority who do not fit the world that is created by our laws and general society, that it would be much easier to be labelled as a burden. And I can indeed see where your side of the argument in assisted dying comes from. Where I come from on the debate is the sense that I have a human right to decide what happens to my body. And I would like to have it, and I rather sort of resent the fact that it is almost like one small group imposing its values upon a larger group.
Well, I would see the small group as those wanting medically assisted suicide. There's two lines here. For some people, if they ever got in that position, it acts as an insurance policy. It's helpful to know it's there in case. And many people won't even use it, but they want to know it's a possibility. And then there's another group of people for whom the fact that it's a possibility is frightening. Because if you're, to some levels, disabled or come under the criteria, you qualify all the time. You're not going to qualify in 20 years' time, or if you get ill. You qualify now. And so when days get bad, or your care package is pulled, or you're having a rubbish time, then it sits there. It's like a permanent sword of Damocles.
But would you not like to be able to offer people like me, if it could be done, some kind of insurance policy.
I think the law's about protection, even protecting us from ourselves. I met Lord Faulkner. He said if the law comes in, it will absolutely just be for terminally ill people.
I would prefer it to be slightly wider than that, because what about someone like me who isn't terminally ill, but for whom life could be unbearable in other ways, and I would like to end it? Why should my right to do that be denied? Why do I have to wait until I have something terminal, until I have that right?
Change the law and it still won't work unless we change the law to be for a much bigger group of people. And let's be aware of what that means. Maybe it's going to be like Canada. That is terrifying. I'm back home with my activist mates. We're living the lives that many pushing for assisted suicide fear. But guess what? With the right support, we also represent what is possible when disability is not viewed as a reason to kill yourself.
Society are terrified of becoming us.
Definitely. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, I get strangers coming to me and saying, "Oh, I feel so sorry. Why are you in the chair?" I said, "Why are you sorry?" I don't know what you're going on about wheelchairs. That's the one thing that makes me independent.
I think what strikes me is that a lot of people in favour of assisted suicide, one of their arguments is this sense of a loss of autonomy. And they list all of the things that, you know, you can no longer do. But what they don't realise is that losing your independence and losing your ability to physically do things you could previously do doesn't have to mean a loss of autonomy. You know, no man is an island, we're not, and we can't actually be independent in everything we do. Yeah, there's loads of things that I can no longer do. But if I can't wipe my own backside, then I can have somebody else do it. And the result is the same, and I can get on with my life.
In the documentaries that are a pro-assisted suicide, or there's usually semi-naked people being bathed, or sitting on a shower chair or in a bath. This sign of indignity.
And yet, while someone's giving me a wash, I'm usually doing my work emails in the morning, getting ahead on them.
Because you can do two things at once.
Well, indeed.
I can't do, because I have to wipe my own bum and have to do...
I almost feel sorry for you, Simone. But that's the funny...
I'm so glad, Jamie, you mentioned about having your backside wiped. I can't remember the last time I could reach my own bum. I do get it, but I don't get it as well, because to want to kill yourself over who wipes your backside.
It's a terror of, like, this loss of dignity or this loss of dignity.
And that's it, isn't it?
I'm quite happy, like, chatting to people half naked during my morning wash, because actually I've learned that that has nothing to do with my inherent dignity as a person. And knowing that makes me feel so much freer and safer, because my dignity is something inside me. And I wish that more people could have the security and the safety of knowing that.
What concerns me is that it will be a state's way of saying, well, this is a cheaper alternative to giving you these packages and giving you the support because you're too expensive to treat.
Until we can really say that every single disabled person has access to all of the high-quality medical treatment, all of the high-quality care they need, that there are no barriers to make life any harder for disabled people than anyone else, then fundamentally we're creating a group of people and saying, well, you're suffering, so if you want to end your life, you can. But we're also making that group of people suffer and want to end their lives.
I think one of the comeback arguments is reasonably we can't put in all that support for everybody.
But what kind of rule of nature is it that we can't give people what they need? It's entirely a human and a political decision. And assisted suicide is literally just the easy out. It's literally that rather than investing in the services people need, we can just give them a way out.
This feels like a good point to end the documentary. I've explained my views. My favourite song is playing in the background. But there's something else I need to talk about first. Recent events have proven that me and the other disabled people who oppose assisted suicide are right to be worried. Very worried. I believe that COVID has shown the extent that some of us are viewed as less important, less valuable, disposable. It felt as though as a country we were divided into people who were worth saving and those of us labelled as having underlying health conditions who weren't. We heard of those with COVID being sent into care homes, of blanket do not resuscitate orders being placed inappropriately on older and disabled people. Treatment was prioritised based on someone's age or what they could and couldn't do. And when you find yourself in that group, it seemed that older, ill and disabled people became collateral damage.
My life is out of control.
As an older disabled woman with underlying health conditions, I was more likely to die from COVID, but I was just as scared of dying from inequality. I'm not sure, really don't think, that if that's how we view different groups of people, older people, disabled people, ill people, should we be giving more power to end that group of people's lives?